Awesome. Hey, guys and girls, thanks again for joining us tonight. We'll turn it over to our TWOA rules interpreter, Daniel Rawson, to take us through several of these and see where we've got some clarifications and understandings on some of these questions on the test. And get ready for test 2 if you haven't taken it yet, and go back and retake test 1 now that you have these. Daniel's not going to tell us any of the correct answers on these, but he will help us with some of the guidance. And the whole purpose of test 1 and the reason why we have it open where you can take it multiple times and even a low passing score is just to get you in the rule book and the case book, get familiar with how those are worded out, and even the test itself. The overwhelming majority of these questions are direct quotes from the rule book, and that's the whole purpose, is to get you in and comfortable with that. So I'm going to turn it over to Daniel Ross. Daniel, thanks.
Hey, Rex, I have correct answers for the ones I was doing. Did you not want me to show those?
It's your call, man. I know you're going to lead us in the right direction, my man.
I must have misunderstood, but that's all right. Yeah, so we've had a good number of people take the test already, and so we've got a pretty decent idea on test 1 on some of the most recently, some of the most commonly missed questions. So yeah, it is a little early, and so you are going to get some answers to some of those common things. But the point of this exercise is to get an idea of kind of where we all are as an association and what we can improve on, right? What are some of the points of emphasis that need to happen? And so test 1 is also an opportunity to get you familiar with the rules. It's open book for a reason, right? It's supposed to get you reading the case book, reading the rule book, and referencing things, so you get familiar with it. So there's going to be some spoilers on this, but if you have not taken test 1, please do so. You can take it as many times as you want, and I believe we've got a cutoff in kind of late December for that. So please get that in, and make sure you get 100 if you can, right? Because you can take it multiple times. It's easy to just go in there and give it a try again, and it's open book as well. So, all right, so we'll get into it. This will be an interactive session, so if there's something you need clarification on, please, maybe enter it in the chat or ask it if you can. We've got a lot of people on this call. We're already up to 65, so it's going to be hard to have like kind of a widespread discussion, but we can certainly try to clarify certain situations if we need to. And again, as more people are coming in, just please, if you can, mute as you're coming in, so that we can. And I believe, Rex, I gave you capabilities to help me with the muting function as well.
You got it. Doing my best.
Okay, so all right, so let's get into it. And this another interactive piece of this is going to be polling. So I'm gonna throw a poll up there, and these are going to be some of the test questions. So let's get ready to participate and enter the poll, and we'll see kind of where we land on some of these questions. All right, so first question, get ready, because there is a poll that's coming your way. The question will appear on the screen, and then we'll also have the question on the poll here. So the first question, and so far we've had 57% of those answered this correctly. So the good news is with this test this year is that we didn't have any questions that were just where there's just a huge majority of people that miss them. For the most part, there's no single question where the majority of people missed it. So that's good in terms of wording and our also maybe our readiness to take tests this year. So 57% answered this one correctly. The first question is in referee's position. So this was the most missed question. In referee's position, the defensive wrestler's shoe comes off. The referee stops the match when there is no significant action. What is the correct call the referee should make? A, technical violation, award 1 point to the opponent and start injury time. B, no penalty, have the wrestler put shoe back on and continue wrestling. C, penalize the defensive wrestler for stalling. D, penalize the defensive wrestler for stalling, and start injury time. All right, so you should see a poll pop on your screen here, and give us your best guess here and for the correct answer. And we're at about 20 responses, so we'll give you guys just a few, about a half a minute here to get these responses in. And so we'll collect your responses. We'll spend some time on this just to go over some scenarios, because this is a rule that not new this year, but did change over the last couple of years. And so, you know, it's important to reiterate some of the scenarios where this might occur. All right, we've got about 57 in. So we've got 100% answered. All right, great. So I'm going to end the poll and I'll share the results here. All right, so we've got 65% of us on the call saying that we should penalize the defensive wrestler. Second place here, we've got some saying penalize the defensive wrestler for stalling and start injury time. All right, and then the rest did A or B here. So about 57% answered this correctly on the actual test so far. And it looks like in the poll, about 65% of us answered this correctly, because the correct answer on this is C. All right, it is, you're going to penalize the defensive wrestler for stalling. I've got the rule reference that you'll see here, and straight from the rule book. It says that if the shoelaces come untied or the shoe comes off, the penalty would be an automatic stalling call. And note that no injury time is charged. And it's not stalling, and it says show. I'm sorry, it should say shoe. It's not stalling if the shoe is torn or damaged. And as another reminder, if you're reporting to the table with shoes improperly secured, then that is a technical violation. So for those of you that chose A, just reminder of which was technical violation, remember that is only if they report to the table with their shoe not securely fashioned. But if we've already started the match, then we are in a stall situation when the shoe becomes untied or comes off. And it used to be, maybe when this rule first came out, it was a technical violation. We've gone back and forth. Just a reminder, and at one point it may have been injury time a few years back, but we got clarification and new rules a couple of years ago saying that this is just a stall call and no injury time is charged. So once you call stalling when that shoe comes off, and or it comes undone, and they take the needed time that they need to properly secure the shoe, they don't actually take out a timeout. So I want to dive in on this a little bit more, because there's a couple important situations. So it's a stall call automatically. So if you're you know, even if they tie that shoe in half a second, okay, and you haven't exactly notified the table that of injury time yet, remember that if you call stalling for a shoe, it is an automatic injury timeout. So they have used one of their injury timeouts. So that's important. The other thing we need to keep in mind is when we've got action and it's an imminent scoring situation that's occurring. So if shoelaces come untied during that type of situation, so you've got action or imminent scoring, just here's some guidelines. Okay, so we're going to hold on to the stall warning or penalty until wrestling action has stopped, scoring has concluded, or a fall has been secured, or a period has come to an end. Once wrestling action has stopped, scoring has stopped, or the period has ended, we will start our sequence with signaling the stalling violation and warning or awarding a point, whichever is warranted, unless a fall occurs. Once we have warned or awarded the points for stalling, we will then award another forthcoming match points in the order of which they earn. So if you've got takedown, reversal, or turn into a near fall criteria, and you've got some stalling that's occurring in these sequences, you're going to award them in the sequence. Okay, so just to give this kind of spell this out a little bit. So let's talk about a couple scenarios. First one, you've got wrestler A is up 14-0, takes the bottom position to begin the third period. Wrestler B turns wrestler A into near fall criteria, and while doing so, shoe comes off of wrestler B. Okay, wrestler B will be permitted to continue to secure near fall points or fall. So the ruling is if wrestler B secures the fall, the stalling penalty against wrestler B for the shoe coming off is moot and will not change the outcome of wrestler B securing the fall. Match is over. Wrestler B wins by fall. Okay, so this goes back to the guidelines that we had before. In point 2 here, even though you've got this stalling that's happening in what is, potentially a tech fall situation, if we have a fall, if this situation ends in securing a fall, then the actual stall point is void. Okay, situation 2. Wrestler A is up 14-0 and takes the bottom position to begin the third period. Wrestler B turns wrestler A into fall criteria, and while doing so, a shoe comes off wrestler B. Wrestler B will be permitted to continue to secure near fall points or a fall, right? Because this is an imminent scoring situation. The period comes to an end or the wrestling action scoring has concluded. Okay, ruling. The match will be stopped and wrestler B is penalized for stalling. If the stalling penalty results in a penalty point or points awarded to wrestler A, the match is over and wrestler A wins by tech fall, regardless of whether wrestler B may have pending near fall points. And this goes back to the other guideline that we had around awarding points in the order for which they were earned. I'm going to check the chat. We've got another scenario, but I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any questions here.
All good, Danny.
Okay, good. So one other situation here, or a couple more on this shoe, just to kind of spell this out a bit more, and then I'll see if you guys have any other questions. So third scenario, wrestler A is up 10-0 and takes the bottom position to begin the third period. Wrestler B turns wrestler A into near fall criteria, and while doing so, a shoe comes off wrestler B. Wrestler B will be permitted to continue to secure near fall points or a fall. The period comes to an end or wrestling action / imminent scoring has concluded. So the ruling on this, the match will be stopped and wrestler B is penalized for stalling. The stalling penalty results in a penalty point awarded to wrestler A. The score is now 11-0, but wrestler B earned a 3-point near fall during the wrestling action. So the 3-point near fall will now be awarded to wrestler B. The score is now 11-3 in favor of wrestler A, and the match is over. Okay, it says 3 near fall. We didn't specify that in the scenario, but that's what happened in this situation. Of course, we know that we can have a 2, 3, or 4-point near fall now this year. All right, last scenario on this kind of shoe coming off during action. Wrestler A is up 2-1, takes the bottom position to begin the third period. Wrestler B turns wrestler A into near fall criteria for a 2 count. And while doing so, a shoelace of wrestler A comes untied. The period comes to an end, or the action scoring has concluded. Ruling: the match will be stopped and wrestler A is penalized for stalling. The stalling penalty results in a penalty point awarded to wrestler B. The score is now tied 2-2, but wrestler B earned a 2-point near fall during the wrestling action, so the 2-point near fall will now be awarded to wrestler B. The score is now 4-2 in favor of wrestler B, and the match is over. Okay, so hopefully we didn't belabor this too much, but I think it's important to get this reminder. Since a lot of these clarifications came a couple of years ago, and so it's good to keep some of these scenarios at top of mind And again, just a reminder, if I'm just going to back up to that one slide, just remember these kind of 3 situations, especially around awarding the points for stalling in kind of the order in which they were earned in the sequence, and not stopping them if we have action. And if a fall occurs, that stop point is null and void. Any questions on kind of shoe coming off? Something that needs to be clarified further?
Yeah, I got a quick question. Say while wrestling is occurring, a shoelace comes untied, but you don't notice it. And then the period is over, and while they're, before they take their place in referee's position, you notice one of the wrestlers is taking a little extra time to tie his shoe. What is the ruling then if you didn't notice it while wrestling was going on?
It's a great question, Omar. And I think this falls in line with other situations that we don't see, right? Sometimes maybe it's a locked hands, a technical violation, right? So unfortunately, even though we missed it, maybe we're pretty confident that this maybe was, untied and became undone earlier. We can't call something that we don't see. So you will make the call when you see the situation, right? And again, you're only going to stop if it's not imminent scoring or action occurring. But we can't call what we don't see. And so even though you may have missed it and the coach maybe saw it before you did, unfortunately, your explanation is you didn't see it. You can only call when you see it.
All right, copy that.
Daniel, a question from the chat. If the shoe is torn or damaged to the point of not being usable, can you refresh us on what happens at that point?
Yeah. So going back is to my slide here is, let's see. Yeah. So no stalling if shoe is torn or damaged. So this would be a referee's timeout to correct the equipment. Okay. And so if you're taking a referee's timeout, they don't, there's no injury time. It's not a minute and a half. You would treat it a lot like, headgear, right? This is legal equipment that became illegal. And so in that situation, they would need to get a new shoe or something to correct it. Okay. But again, that's
great. Next
becomes damaged or torn.
Next question along the same line. What if the shoe comes partially off? For example, the back of the shoe could be folded under bottom of the heel, etc.
Yeah. So if you're seeing a shoe off, right, to me, partially off, and you see the heel, that shoe's not properly secured. And so to me, that falls in the category of not being properly secured. So so if you spot that, that's a stall call if we have no action. Let's see, if bottom wrestler shoe comes off due to top wrestler removing it with a hold, far angle breakdown, an example, do you penalize the bottom wrestler? Yeah, we have covered this in previous years. And I think for you to penalize, first of all, no, if it is very intentional and blatant and you're able to see very clearly that this was the action at the top wrestler, I would not penalize the bottom wrestler. We have debated this, that a properly secured shoe is not going to come off, right? But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it could happen, but it would have to be very, very blatant. I think you would have to see a very intentional, all the action from the other wrestler pulling it off. But if you've got action where both wrestlers are doing it and one person holds it and the other person, and the shoe comes off, that's not a properly secured shoe, and then I would penalize the bottom wrestler. So you're going to have to make a judgment call about whether the top wrestler is truly the only person that's causing that. And Rex, I don't know if you have any, or anyone else has any comments on that, but that's, I think, how we've interpreted that situation in the past.
Absolutely. Unsportsmanlike conduct if it is absolutely obvious they're doing it on purpose. Other than that, typical unsecured shoe.
Yeah. All right, good questions. All right. So those are reminders. And of course, we'll make this available You know, maybe we'll wait till after to test one ends, but and just so everyone can have access to it. Okay, so let's talk about the next scenario. So 58% of test takers answered this next question correctly. And then yes, we will launch the poll here as well. So the question is, coach's misconduct occurs when a coach improperly questions the referee at the scorer's table or from the corner and or bench. True or false? Okay, so here we go. We're going to launch the poll here. See if I got the right one here. There we go. So that should be on your screen now. Almost got the full results. Still got a few. All right. Got about 65 in out of the 80 in the meeting, so we'll give it just a few more seconds here. All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, end poll, and I'll be sharing the results. Okay, so we've got 76% saying false, and about a fourth of us saying true. So the correct answer here is B, false. So here we've got about, you know, we have more people answering this correctly here in the meeting than we did on the test, so that's good. But we still got about a fourth of us saying that that it is true, and I think the key thing that we need to read from this question here that makes this false is this last phrase, which is scorer's table or from the corner and or bench. Okay, remember that if you look at Rule 5, Section 5, you can read about misconducts there, and there's the section there that says that coach's misconduct occurs when a coach improperly questions the referee at the scorer's table. Okay, so you cannot give a misconduct to a coach in the corner. Now, related to that, and this was also on the test, and we had 63% that answered this question correctly. If a coach is questioning the official's call from their corner, what are the options? So we just talked about from the table, right? Is it A, coach may be warned for the coach misconduct unless it is the second penalty? B, the coach should be issued a flagrant misconduct and removed by law enforcement. C, the official will advise the coach to sit down and be quiet. D, there is no reason to penalize the coach unless the act is unsportsmanlike in nature. Let me see if I had a poll on this one. Nope, I did not. So we're going to end that poll. Sorry about that. All right. So related to this, right? So if we're in the corner, if you look at 530-1, there is no reason to penalize the coach unless the act is unsportsmanlike in nature. So D is the correct answer. Okay. So if you read the rule there, you know, what is unsportsmanlike conduct from a coach? It's any act that becomes abusive or interferes with the orderly progress of the match. These acts may occur prior to, during, or after a match. It includes violations of the bench decorum rule, taunting, acts of disrespect, or those actions which incite negative reaction by others. So in summary, coach misconduct only happens at the scorer's table when they come and they question your judgment. And that can only happen at the scorer's table. It cannot happen at the corner, from the corners, or anywhere else. But for coaches unsportsmanlike, that can happen anywhere. So it can happen from the corner. It could happen at the table. And so that's the distinction. So just understand that misconduct is something that happens as a result of questioning, as a result of a conference with the official at the table, and unsportsmanlike is elsewhere, including the corner. And again, it can include abusive. It could include disrespect. Okay, you have to judge whether it's unsportsmanlike in nature, and there's some indications here in this definition about disrupting the orderly progress, being disrespectful, taunting, etc. Actions which incite negative reaction by others. Okay, and so this is where your judgment comes into play. In a chat, it looks like someone says, if that rule is designated to protect the coach from overly emotional responses, especially if they know they are emotional within reason, not unsportsmanlike. I think the misconduct rule is designated to deal with the nature of conferences, and to make sure that, yes, they can question and ask for clarification for calls, but there's boundaries, and they're not supposed to question judgment. Unsportsmanlike is a bigger blanket about a coach's behavior, and that can happen during a coach conference. So you can give a misconduct, but if you're doing a coach's conference and it gets into the territory of taunting and disrespect above and beyond than just questioning your judgment, then it can also be unsportsmanlike. So don't think that you can only give misconducts at the table. You can also give a misconduct and an unsportsmanlike at the table, but you cannot give a misconduct outside of the table. Okay, so those are the kind of the questions around misconduct. Any other questions? All right, sorry, I'm multitasking a bit here. All right, next question. 59% answered this one correctly. Giving the wrong wrestler choice of position is always considered bad time. True or false? Let me see if I can launch this one again. All right, should be up there now. True or false? Giving the wrong wrestler choice of position is always considered bad time. Okay, we're at about 60 responses. Should be easy one, guys. 2 options. All right, up to 70. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and close this poll and share the results. Okay, so we are 70-30. Okay, 70% of us say false. And 30% say true. So let's take a moment here to talk about bad time, especially when it relates to giving the wrong wrestler choice. And then we'll talk about bad time and some of those other scenarios. Bad time is always something that I think all of us need a refresher on each season. It's certainly something that I always have to look over. So let's take a look at the right answer here. Of course, if you're among the 70% that said false, you are correct. So let's look at the rules here. 511. A bad time is wrestled with the wrestlers in the wrong position, or the wrong wrestler being given choice of position in the following situations. Okay, at the start of the 3rd period, at the start of the 32nd tiebreaker, at the start of the ultimate tiebreaker, after the opponent has taken his or her 2nd injury timeout, or on the next restart after opponent receives a 2-point stalling penalty. So in other words, you're able, if it's not one of those scenarios and you have a wrestler getting the wrong choice, you should be able to correct it without re-wrestling. So if you look at 512, bad time involves time when that occurs when a clock should have been stopped at the end of a period, or wrestling has been allowed to continue following a violation when the match should have been stopped. Okay, so as a reminder, any points and penalties or injury time that occurred during bad time shall be voided with the following exceptions: flagrant misconduct, unsportsmanlike conduct, unnecessary roughness, illegal holds, blood time, and H&C time. Okay, so you're going to void everything. You've got to do, re-wrestle. You're going to wipe the points and penalties except for these 6 things. So these penalties and this type of time, right? Blood time and H&C time. All right, so going back to the kind of the question, right? So if it's not one of those scenarios that we just talked about, how do we correct a situation where we have a wrestler that was given the wrong choice, right? So errors requiring bad time to be re-wrestled must be corrected prior to the start of any subsequent period. If the wrong wrestler is given the choice of position at the start of the second or at the start of the first 30-second tiebreaker in overtime, no re-wrestling is necessary. The opponent may be given the choice at the start of the third period or at the start of the second 30-second tiebreaker in overtime. Okay. The shortcut of this, right, is, when you're you're looking at, you realize that the wrong wrestler was given choice, after the second period, can you correct it in the next period, right? And does that wrestler already have choice? And so those are the questions that you have to ask, when you make a mistake in the second period. But in all the other situations, if you need to re-wrestle and you can't correct it, right, then you do have bad time and you've got re-wrestling, and just understand that that has to be corrected prior to the start of any subsequent period. Okay. I think that's all I have on bad time. Is just a reminder. Any questions on bad time?
No questions in the chat.
All right. We got bad time down. All right. Good. All right. So next most missed question. Wrestler A reports to the skin check area with facial hair. Is wrestler A allowed to compete? A, no, facial hair is not allowed. B, yes, if the facial hair is a length that either the referee or designated on-site appropriate healthcare professional can view the skin. C, yes, but if the facial hair is not trimmed to a length that either the referee or designated on-site appropriate healthcare professional can view the skin, the wrestler must wear a mask. Or D, yes, facial hair is allowed, and the length does not have any influence on a wrestler's opportunity to compete. All right, and we will launch this poll. Maybe, let's see here. I'm having trouble here launching it. Let's try this again. There we go.
Daniel, I think all of these choices at one time or another were actually the rule.
So always good to review, right?
That's right.
Has everybody ever told Daniel it's rude to eat in front of us?
I know, I'm sorry. I can't help it. I've just been waiting all day. I can't do this without brain fuel. All right, we've got about 60 responses in. Let's see if we can get a few more. We've got about 82 of us on the call, so this rule has certainly been an evolution over the years. So if you're been officiating and you're coming back, you might notice things have changed a bit. All right. And we'll go ahead and close it. Okay. 70% saying D. Yes, facial hair is allowed, and the length does not have any influence on a wrestler's opportunity to compete. That was the majority of the responses here. Second place here was yes, it was B, which is yes, if the facial hair is a length that either the referee or a designated on-site appropriate healthcare professional can view the skin. And we've got a few others saying no, facial hair is not allowed. I'm going to suspect that maybe you used to officiate or and haven't officiated in the last couple of years, because this is that used to be the case, but now they've loosened the requirements. So and then C, common thing too, which was also a caveat to an old rule about they don't have to trim it, but they have to wear a mask. That's also been clarified this year. So correct answer is D. I want to say this is maybe last year or 2 years ago. Maybe it was last year where they made this clarification. So, I mean, this serves as a good reminder. There used to be this full paragraph about facial hair inspections and whether it needed to be a certain length to do appropriate skin check. And if they couldn't, then they either needed to shave it or they needed to wear a mask. And there was all of this verbiage. And last year they struck all of that verbiage out. And the only thing that's there now that says facial hair is permissible. So, and some of the clarity that we got is, there's the length of the facial hair has no influence on, their ability, or eligibility to wrestle. We still need to be cognizant about skin issues. And so that's kind of what I have here in this note. If you still see any questionable areas on and around the face, right? Maybe something's coming out of the beard area, something's on the cheek, something's on the neck, whatever it is. We're still going to take those seriously, and they still need to have the appropriate skin form filled out by a physician. We still need to consult with the appropriate healthcare professional, right? If we don't have those things, then they can still be disqualified from wrestling. So don't see this as just a license to not look at skin check, in the face and the neck and all of that, but understand that the length of facial hair, there is no limit on facial hair length. Yeah, gone are the days where they allowed a well-trimmed mustache. Yep. Any questions on facial hair? All right, easy enough, right? All right, this was a test question, but I'm going to ask it in video form, if you don't mind here. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video and show you a poll. Real question is there a penalty for fleeing the mat? Simple question, but I'm going to give you a couple of options, okay? So watch the video. Uh-oh, sorry about that. All right, I'll play it again. All right. So I'll play the video and I'll also launch the poll. And so I'm giving a couple of answers here, or a couple of options. So you should see the poll on your screen now. is there a penalty point for fleeing the mat? So, but I'm asking, I guess, a bit more. So what is the sequence? 3-point takedown plus 1 point red or for fleeing the mat. No takedown, but red gets 1 point for green fleeing. Maybe neither of them. Maybe there's no points at all.
Daniel, we actually have the whistle official on the call.
We do, Mr. Marco.
Hi, everybody.
See if we can get a few more responses here. I know that takes a bit to read through all the options here, but all right, and we've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and poll share results. All right. Not as much of a majority on this one. We've got a couple of two main responses here, but 60% are saying no fleeing for green. It's only 3 takedown red. All right. And we've got second place here, 30% saying yes, 3 takedown red plus 1 point red for green fleeing. I guess before we answer I think we all agree there's a takedown. Doesn't look like there's only one person who said no points. I think we can, in this frozen screen that we see here, right? We've got 2 points of contact there inside the boundary line. We've got control of both legs. So I think that's a pretty clear takedown. I don't think it doesn't look like anyone really disagrees. The real question is, did we have fleeing?
Can't have fleeing if you have points.
Yeah, right. So
sorry, I'm not trying to jump to the answer, but
that's all right.
Pretty blatant in the rulebook, Daniel.
So before we get to the rule, if we didn't have a takedown here, do we think this is fleeing?
That's tough. I can make a case for both sides, honestly, if there's no points.
No, that's his natural path of egress.
Yeah, I can hear the coach's argument. What do you expect him to do?
It looked like he trying to flee.
I see an argument for fleeing here. I think that the wrestler is trying to bring him back in bounds. I think he's using that boundary line to go out of bounds here. But it is debatable. I can understand that he doesn't have a lot of other direction to go. So maybe it's a debate for another day when we look at fleeing. I'm trying to look at the chat here. We've got fleeing, avoiding an imminent scoring situation. So yeah, so I think what we see here, from my perspective, is as soon as he gets in trouble and starts to get a hold, I see some pretty aggressive efforts to avoid being taken down. So that's how I would interpret it. However, we all also agreed that by the end of that sequence, red secured control on the edge of the mat and got a takedown. So if we look at the rule, and of course this was said on the call, you cannot. The rule says that if you are successful with a takedown, then there can be no fleeing of the mat. Okay, so even though you might judge that there was fleeing here before the takedown was secured, if the wrestler is successful with the takedown, there can be no fleeing of the mat. All right, so I'm going to do a related question, and then we'll maybe look at some of the specifics of the rule here. So here's a related question, which about 61% answered correctly on the test. We got a near fall situation. Okay, they're on the edge of the mat. They've earned a 2-point near fall. Wrestler B then bridges and intentionally goes out of the wrestling area, causing action to be stopped. Okay, what points are earned? 2-point near fall, 1-point penalty for technical violation for fleeing the mat. B, 2-point near fall only. C, 2-point near fall, 1-point penalty for stalling. Or D, none of the above. Okay, so let me launch that poll and you tell me what you guys think.
Okay, Daniel, I'm gonna ask the question Bryce thinking, what's for dinner tonight?
Got like it's like a rice curry thing. I really do apologize for eating this on camera. I should just turn my camera off.
I was gonna start a meal train for you, honestly.
But I was needing some fuel pretty badly. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, end poll. All right, so we've got 78%, so pretty large majority here saying just 2-point near fall. The next place here would be A, and we got a few saying, about 9 of us saying 2-point near fall plus 1 point for a technical violation. Couple said 2 points near fall, 1 point for stalling. We'll clarify that as well. Okay, so let's see what the rule says. The correct answer, which 78% guessed correctly. Good job. 2-point near fall. Okay, if you look at 731, the rule says there can be no technical violation of fleeing the mat if near fall or takedown points have been earned. Okay, so to summarize the two situations, right? We had the video with the flee and then a takedown. And in this situation, we have near fall criteria, or sorry, near fall points earned. And then we have the bottom wrestler intentionally going out of bounds. You're allowed, the defensive wrestler can intentionally go out of bounds once near fall points have been earned. So at least a 2-point, a 2-second count in near fall criteria. Okay, so understand that applies to near fall and takedown situations. So for those who said stalling, a few of you, right, intentionally going out of the wrestling area when you're in an imminent scoring situation, let's say in this situation would be a near fall. If anything, it would be a technical violation because of the intention to go out. It wouldn't be stalling. But in this situation, it's void because once you've reached criteria, or sorry, once you've, very important, not criteria, once you've earned near fall points, then it is, it's not a technical violation. Anything prior to that, intentionally going out prior to near fall points being earned, can be a technical violation. Okay, if we deem that that there is intention to go out of bounds, again, to avoid being scored upon. Any questions? It, you know, again, 61% of us got it right, so you know we're pretty well on track. But good thing to clarify. Okay, all right, next one. We had we're getting down to the bottom of the list here of least of kind of our top 10 most missed questions. We have 69% that answered this one correctly. How many H&C timeouts are allowed in the same match? This is done by the appropriate healthcare professional to evaluate an injury to the head, neck, and cervical column. Okay, so I'm going to throw up the poll. And is it 1, is it 2, 3, or 4 timeouts? Okay, you should see those results. Based on the chat, there's some clever answers here. All right, we're at about 64 of us. Let's see if we can get a few more responses here. All right, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Share the results. Okay, so point taken here that maybe to further clarify this, it would need to be how many agency timeout are allowed in the same match for each wrestler. Okay, it was implied that it was applying to each wrestler, but in technically, so the answer is 1 for each wrestler. Okay, a second occurrence of injury to the head and neck involving cervical column and or nervous system in the same match shall require the wrestler to default the match. So each wrestler gets 1. They do not get 2. So if for those who said 2, if you were adding up, 1 for each wrestler, okay, I get it. I understand that. But it is 1 each wrestler. Okay, so and we'll go over H&C since we're here, just as kind of a summary of the procedure, because it's always important, because especially when we're talking about wrestler safety, these are something that we need to really review each year, make sure we understand the protocol. In the absence of a certified medical personnel, physician and or licensed athletic trainer, all injuries to the head and neck involving the cervical column will be covered in 1.5 minutes as injury time. The summary is a referee is not calling H&C time. This is always initiated, or at least we're not ever initiating H&C time. We are only going to call it in response to an appropriate healthcare professional, trainer, medical personnel telling us that they need time for evaluation, and then we're giving the signal. Okay, our protocol is straight to injury time. So when you've got an appropriate healthcare professional present or personnel, they may use the allowed time to a maximum of 5 minutes for evaluation. After 5 minutes, the athlete would be required to prepare to wrestle without delay. And if they're not, they will default. A second occurrence of H&C injury will result in a default, like we covered on the last slide. If an H&C is caused by an illegal hold, okay, so we got a head and neck injury, cervical column issue. If it's from an illegal hold, it's 2 minutes recovery time. And if they're not able to continue in that time, the injury contestant wins by default. So recovery time takes precedence over H&C. An appropriate healthcare professional or coach may terminate a match at any time due to illness or injury. And understand a coach cannot overrule the appropriate healthcare decision to terminate the match. When H&C injury time occurs during bad time, the H&C time used will not be voided. We covered that earlier. When a match is stopped for injury, including H&C, and the referee determines imminent scoring, including near fall, would have been successful, the referee shall charge the injury timeout and award the applicable points to the non-injured wrestler. Okay, so that's very similar for like an injury imminent scoring situation. If we're we extend that to H&C as well and award points. Okay, so just remember, if we've got a situation where someone has some sort of injury to that we can see by various signs of the head or neck, we're calling injury time every time. Okay, and then the appropriate healthcare professional can request H&C time for evaluation, and that's going to be a total of 5 minutes minus whatever injury time they used. Okay, so if they got a minute and a half, they take 15 seconds after you call injury. They say, we want H&C. You give the signal. Now it's 5 minutes minus 15 seconds. All right, we go a couple questions in the. Any other questions I'm missing in the chat here? Okay, I think we got it. Any questions on H&C?
So Daniel, you're saying that if you take 15 seconds of injury time, then they only get 4:45 of head neck recovery time, correct?
Correct.
But they still have the injury time to use if they want. It would still be a minute and a half if the match continues, correct?
They
They don't
yes.
get they don't get double dinged,
Time.
right?
The time, and good. I had a slide on this, but I hit it, and I should have put it up there. The time basically converts that they use from injury time, that converts over to H&C. So if they use 15, then they have 4:45 left, but the injury time is not used, so they still have an injury time. It doesn't count as an injury timeout used.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Next one. 70% answered this one correctly. So here we go. A wrestler who is injured because of an illegal hold is entitled to 2 minutes of recovery time and may use 1.5 minutes of injury time if needed. Okay. So let's go to the poll. Okay. The wrestler who's injured because of illegal hold is entitled to 2 minutes of recovery time, and they can also use 1.5 minutes of injury time if they need it. True or false? Okay, hopefully this one's a quick one to answer. See if we can get a few more responses. We've got about 60 of the 80 something that's in the meeting here. All right, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, end poll. And there's the results. Okay, so about 70% saying false, and about a third of us, 21 people in here, are saying true. So just to clarify, let's look at the rule. If you have a legal hold, right, and someone's injured as a result of an illegal hold or maneuver, we're automatically into recovery time, right? And they've got 2 minutes in that recovery time to resume wrestling, or they default the match. The rule though around can you use an injury time on top of that? No. Okay, if you look at rule 822, an injured contestant cannot take injury time immediately following recovery time. So that's just simply spelled out. And just also understand that there is kind of a hierarchy to these timeouts. If you look into the rule book, blood time and recovery time is often something that takes precedence. So we just saw an example of that with H&C time, right? For whatever reason, if you're injured and it's not an illegal move and it's an injury to the head or neck or spinal, you get 5 minutes. But if it was the result of an illegal move, you get 2 minutes recovery. That takes precedence over H&C. So, but in any case, you're not able to combine it with an injury time. It's the same thing with H&C, like we talked about. But also on recovery, it's 2 minutes and that's it. You're not taking an injury time on top of that. Okay, pretty clear. All right, keep rolling. We're down to the bottom of getting to the end, pretty much to the end here. So This is the last one, I think. So let me launch the poll here and read the question. No, sorry, two more. They're related. On a 2-point stall, the referee shall stop the match when penalizing the offensive wrestler for stalling when the defensive wrestler is on their feet. True or false? All right, and oh, this is the last question, so good. On a 2-point stall, the referee shall stop the match when penalizing the offensive wrestler for stalling. 2-point stall, so this is the fourth stall offense. The referee shall stop the match when penalizing the offensive wrestler when the defensive wrestler is on their feet. All right, let's get a few more. Oh, this is a good one. All right. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. We are 50-50 on this one. So this is a little bit of a trick because this actually isn't the wording that was asked on the test. I kind of reworded this intentionally. The wording on the actual test was this. Referee shall stop the match except when warning or penalizing the offensive wrestler for stalling or technical violation when the defensive wrestler is on their feet, regardless of the position, location of the offensive wrestler, except when a 2-point stall is awarded. That's actually word for word from the book. So the correct answer is true. So I just reworded it just to kind of trim this down for this discussion. And also to emphasize the point, because I think this is one even I have to just recalibrate my brain to remember, right? Because in every other situation, like it says in the ruling here, when the top wrestler is stalling and the defensive wrestler comes to their feet, you would let that situation continue, right? You would still penalize for stalling, but you wouldn't stop the match, right? You're not going to interrupt the action when a defensive wrestler is coming to their feet. And, you know, for many of us who've been officiating for a long time, that's almost muscle memory at this point, right? But the exception to this is if it's the fourth stall call, so the 2-point stall, and we have the defensive wrestler on their feet, and it's on the top wrestler, we do stop that situation.
We need to emphasize, because you could also call stalling if the shoelaces are undone, and in an imminent scoring position, you don't call it. The book kind of emphasizes that too. I know it didn't question state that, but that could be a situation.
Trying to look in the rule book if this covers the shoe. That's a good question.
So it says at the end that that's the only time you would not stop the match if there was imminent scoring and there's shoelaces.
I think I believe you're correct. I don't think it applies to the shoe situation because that's action. Yeah. Yeah, good clarification. All right, so that's just a reminder, right, guys? I mean, just, you know, this is the one where we were mostly split on it. And so I just wanted to bring that up. Just remember, and it's important, right? Because if we don't stop the match, everything that happens after that is bad time. You know, in your quick sheet, when I'm looking at rules at the end of the, beginning of the season, and putting some things as a reminder for me to remember, in addition to, the stall sequence and the penalty charts and things like that. This is one of those rules that I just kind of put in there to say, all right, remember, for fourth stall, what do you do? And it involves this defensive wrestler situation, and also, the choice of position. Because after the fourth point stall, right, the other wrestler gets choice. So those are just things that we don't encounter often, but we will at some point, and we need to be ready to make the right call in that situation and avoid a bad time situation. All right, this is my last slide, and then I'll let you go. So I just wanted to point out, and we mentioned this on the last call, there is a weigh-in guide, and it's on the website. We publish one each season. This weigh-in guide is helpful for clarifying. Well, for one, it kind of summarizes, and it's actually 2 pages. The first page has all the text. The second page has some pictures and examples. But for both referees and probably more importantly for coaches, since they're the ones performing weigh-ins, about the weigh-in procedure, how to conduct weigh-ins, what to look for, and what, importantly, what constitutes a legal uniform, right? What's legal in terms of knee pads and mouth guards, this facial hair that we just clarified, what types of sports bras. So we're trying to, I'm not trying to make this a manual, right? Where it's just like multiple pages of examples. I just don't think that does us any good. We want this to be kind of a brief guide, mostly no more than 1 page, so that, people can reference it, and coaches. And so use this as your part of your pre-meet duties. I just went to confirm an event today, and I sent it to the head coach, say, I'm running your event this week. Understand that you're responsible for doing weigh-ins, and please see the attached weigh-in guide, and let me know, and ensure that your wrestlers are ready to wrestle and in proper uniform. And here's some guidelines on the uniform. So I send this before, and that way when I come on site, we can make any clarifications, right, that need be, but it also allows us to help enforce the rule on the mat, right? We're talking about it in pre-meet duties. When we get on site, hopefully we're asking them if they understand, if there's any special equipment, if there's any questions, right? And we're inspecting the area and the wrestlers. And so, and then that makes it very easy for us to be able to, since we've communicated and we've interacted with them prior, to enforce this on the mat. So one thing I did add was, I added this today, is the question around knee pads and knee sleeves. So there's a couple of examples here. The rule for NFHS says that a knee without a pad, right, is illegal. And so, that first box with the blue pads there, that is that's legal because it's clearly padded, right? In the middle, it might look like a sleeve, but that is actually a padded material. So if it's got any kind of padding material or any kind of like padding, kind of thickness to it, then it's okay. It's not, that is actually legal. And so that's an example on my screen here. A sleeve is really that third example, which is usually just kind of a silky, almost even spandex sort of material that has no padding. But one thing that I think we're seeing a lot more is this one on the right, which I added on the far right, which is kind of the copper compression sleeves. Now, we've said in previous seasons that these are not legal, but I at least am still seeing them a lot. And I know I've gotten some questions from others around the state about this. And so to be clear, there's medical reasons why people might want to wear a compression, sleeve around their knee. We understand that, but strictly speaking, for the NFHS rules, and we've checked in different states as well, this does not meet the definition of a legal knee pad under the NFHS guidelines. So that copper compression sleeve is illegal. So we're going to include this in the guide, and hopefully we can get this to coaches as well, so they can start recognizing it And, guys, we need to just do our part early on in the season and enforce these rules. That way, we're not caught in a situation where late around and we get to postseason and we see everybody with these types of knee pads and we're enforcing it, and they're saying, they've gone a year without, anybody correcting them. So if we can just be kind of uniform in our efforts to fulfill our pre-meet duties and send this to coaches and enforce it on the mat, I think we'll avoid issues later on. So again, this will be on the website. And so someone questioned, there's a medical use, right? So could this be a medical device, something with a physician's note? No. I don't see compression as in that category. I would see a brace or something for sure, but not a sleeve. Good question though. Any other questions? This is my last slide. So if there's anything else that I didn't cover, and if anybody else has anything to add, please.
Yeah, Daniel, question in the chat. Can we review the protocol for deaf or hard of hearing wrestlers?
Yeah, great question. So if you have, there's kind of two scenarios where you need to adapt your officiating capabilities a bit, right? So if you're dealing with deaf wrestlers, you're going to use a lot more. First of all, you're going to have to be aware of your positioning to make sure that the wrestler can see you, and then you're also going to use more contact, right? And so sometimes there's an interpreter on the mat, and sometimes there's not. And so just understand that sometimes they may ask that an interpreter might actually come outside of the mat and will be trying to interpret, right? Give signs to the wrestler to interpret what the coach is saying to the wrestler so that they can also be coached. So just be aware. Don't kick off any ASL people on your mat, because that's important. That's part of the accommodations we would make. And of course, instead of blowing the whistle, we're going to blow the whistle, but you're also going to give contact. So you're going to touch the wrestler, the deaf wrestler, so they know that time is out and wrestling has stopped. So that's for deaf. We have, if you read the rule book, there's visually impaired wrestlers as well. Understand that they, in that situation, have to, the two wrestlers have to maintain contact. So you're actually going to start the match with them having hand contact with each other, and that contact must be maintained. And so if they're wrestling and at some point there's significant separation, you have to do your job as an official to make sure that they come back together and that contact's maintained. Doesn't happen that often, but every now and then we do get visually impaired wrestlers. So, all right. Well, listen, everyone, I appreciate your participation tonight. We had a really good turnout, and I hope it wasn't too much death by PowerPoint, but I really appreciate the poll participation. We got a lot of people interacting on here, and hopefully this provided some clarification. And I know we've got some more stuff coming up in the future. We'll get into some more videos and some of the more exciting stuff, but hopefully this allows us to get aligned. And so I appreciate everybody's participation tonight.
Daniel, hey, this was excellent. Thanks so much for putting this out there. And reminder, everybody, participate on the forums on the website. It's a great place to put videos, questions for tough calls and misunderstood rules, those types of things for clarification. We don't have to wait on Daniel's next call for that. We can discuss all those out there. So if you have video links, those types of things, put them out there, and Daniel will be available to help us answer and discuss out there as well. Daniel, this was excellent. Thanks so much.
Sure, no problem. All right. Appreciate it, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a great evening, everyone.